Hello everyone, this is Mustafa Hussain from Campus Guru, and we have a very interesting topic to discuss today, and that is how our education system has changed throughout the world, specifically in Pakistan, and how we have moved from old technology towards new online learning and modern technologies. Since the pandemic, we have noticed a change in our everyday lives. Similarly, if we talk about education, we have noticed that we have moved from old school learning towards new systems and online toolkits. So to discuss this and how students, teachers and parents have adopted to these new methods of learning that have changed the world, we have with us Ma'am Shaista, who is also a former teacher and the CEO of Seed Ventures, which was started in 2009. This organization has worked on nurturing an ecosystem where the social impact of traditional entrepreneurship can be enhanced and scaled. So Ma'am Shaista, since you have been a teacher yourself and you're quite familiar with our education system, what do you have to say about the new system that is online education, and how is it different from the traditional modes that we used to have?
Okay, thank you Mustafa for asking the question. So I'm going to begin with the fact that education has not changed. So let's get that fact correct and out of the way. 20 years ago when I was in school, we were learning sitting in classrooms in front of a blackboard, and then once I graduated and moved on to college and university, वो whiteboard हो गया. उसके बाद ये कि once the pandemic came, in this day and age, children who were once in a classroom setting around people in front of a blackboard were shifted in front of a laptop. So primarily, only the mode of learning has changed. What they're learning and how they're learning, that hasn't really changed. हमारी किताबें वही हैं, निसाब वही है, practically जो चीज़ें हम discuss करते हैं अपनी school settings में वो वही चीज़ें हैं जो कि हम 20 साल पहले कर रहे थे. आप single national curriculum को ले लीजिए, primarily वो, in my humble opinion, it has not been structured to create leaders and innovators for tomorrow. So in terms of how we're educating our children and what we're educating them about, that hasn't changed. And if we really talk about online learning, we have to rethink the whole model. We have to think कि जो developed nations हैं वहाँ क्या हो रहा है.
So do you personally think that this sort of advancement will somehow bring a positive change in the society as well as the students' learning in general within Pakistan?
I keep, and going back to what I had earlier said, it depends on what you're teaching them. अगर आप बच्चे से expect कर रहे हैं कि वो एक one dimensional monotone teaching के through osmosis सीख लेगा science में, तो आप गलत सोच रहे हैं, क्योंकि जब तक आप उसको वो एक्सपेरिमेंट करके नहीं दिखाएंगे, उसको नहीं पता चलेगा कि ऑस्मोसिस क्या होती है. आपको उसको एक्चुअली डेमोन्स्ट्रेट करके बहुत सारी चीज़ें दिखानी पड़ेंगी साइंस में ताकि वो सीख सके. एक एडवांटेज ऑनलाइन लर्निंग जो शायद ऑफ़र कर सकती वो ये है कि अब आप प्रैक्टिकल एक्सपेरिमेंट्स करके रिकॉर्ड करके बच्चे को दिखा सकते हैं जो कि एक साइंस की एक बेसिक फ़िलासफ़ी है या उसका एसेंस है किसी डिसिप्लिन का, राइट. एंड ये बहुत सारे इफ़ यू हैव यूट्यूब, राइट, एंड यू हैव अ नंबर ऑफ वीडियोज़ जिसमें बच्चे सीख रहे होते हैं ये चीज़ें. सो हाउ डू यू, इट्स अबाउट reworking, how do you breathe life back into the educational system using online learning.
All right, so what do you think about how parents and students are adjusting to this new shift in online education, especially because they can't really afford these sort of gadgets in the first place within Pakistan? So how do you think they'll cope up with this in the near future?
I'm really glad you brought that up, because there is a problem, right? You have mobile phone penetration which is just continuing to grow. Everybody and everywhere you look, you have smartphones. But the fact is कि ये devices किस वजह से यूज़ हो रही हैं और online learning के लिए आपको किन किन चीज़ों की ज़रूरत है, right? So सब households ज़ाहिर है ये चीज़ें afford नहीं कर सकते. So definitely अगर आप पाकिस्तान में चाहते हैं कि out of school enrollment, जो out of school बच्चे हैं उनकी participation बढ़ जाए, literacy बढ़ाएं basic, आपको ऐसे models लेके आने पड़ेंगे जिसमें there has to be a share and use model where they don't have to procure the device completely. When they're done, it can be rented out to the next third, fourth person. So we have to think about all the socioeconomic classes that are present in our system.
So, what do you have to say about the stagnation in the process of education within Pakistan? Especially हमने जैसे बात की कि for example हर चीज़ का एक ना एक development हुई है quite recently अगर आप उठा के देखें तो जैसे for example we started off with letters, we came to telephones, then we switched on to mobile phones. So there was a generational change as well as a transitional process throughout this. But in terms of education जैसे आपने बोला हम लोग अभी भी वही white board, black board पे हैं. So do you think it's easy to change that within Pakistan or are we just stuck with the old traditional system?
I think in order to redo education in Pakistan, we need to decide as a nation हम किस direction में जाना चाहते हैं. हमें जो अगली generation जो raise करनी है वो किन लोगों की करनी है. आपके स्कूलों में critical creative thinking पे कोई concentration नहीं होती है. आपने किताब में बच्चे को एक तरीक़ाकार बता दिया, उसने उसी हिसाब से वो मैथमेटिकल सम सॉल्व करना है. प्रॉब्लम सॉल्विंग हम नहीं सिखाते उनको. जब आप इन सारी चीज़ों पे कंसंट्रेट नहीं करेंगे तो आप अगली सदी के इनोवेटर्स, लीडर्स, चेंज मेकर्स कैसे ग्रो करेंगे? एंड दैट्स आई होप दैट इज़ वेयर वी वांट टू गो एज अ नेशन. सो वी विल रिमेन स्टैग्नेटेड इफ वी थिंक दैट द ओल्ड methodology and the old syllabus and the old way of looking at things is going to work in the next 20 years or the 50 years, and we are stepping into a very different time. Are we even talking to our children about the risks that the world is going to be facing? Are we talking to them about climate change or the sustainable development goals or the fact that what role they can play as people to actually contribute to a better environment? हम नहीं बात कर रहे हैं उनसे इसके बारे में. हम अभी भी in Pakistan studies we're still stuck in 1947 and we're not moving beyond that. So you know we have to rethink all of that.
Do you think that our teachers, for example, have enough training or capabilities to adjust to this new virtual system that we're trying to bring within Pakistan? Or do you think that there will be some steps that they have to take to adjust to this online education in general for the near future?
So I'm going to break this the answer to this question in two parts. The first is that our teachers, very few of them are trained to actually educate. It's about walking into a classroom and delivering a lecture and getting out and the day is done. It is not about understanding the learning needs of the children within your, and I understand कि उनके ऊपर अपना load होता है, right? एक क्लास में 24 बच्चे या 25 बच्चे हैं तो वो हर एक पे ज़ाहिर है इंडिविजुअल अटेंशन नहीं दे सकती टीचर, लेकिन पढ़ाने का तरीका होता है. There are things that my teachers taught me that remain with me in terms of character building, values, the basic fundamentals of a specific subject that I still remember today. I don't see that happening now. So एक लेवल पे बेसिक टीचर ट्रेनिंग की शदीद ज़रूरत है कि आपको ट्रेन किया जाए कि आने वाली नस्लों को आपने किस तरीके से ट्रेन करना है थिंक करने के लिए. दूसरी चीज़ ये है कि जब पैंडेमिक आया तो जाहिर है ये जो टोटल शिफ्ट था टू डिजिटल वो ये एकदम से आया था. इट वाज वेरी एब्रप्ट. अ लॉट ऑफ टीचर्स weren't trained in Zoom or Skype or other methodologies. I just feel it should have happened earlier, the whole digital system, because सारी दुनिया डिस्टेंसेस कम करने की कोशिश कर रही है और हम अभी तक वहीं फंसे थे कि हमारे यहाँ ऑनलाइन सिस्टम्स बहुत सारे स्कूलों में थे ही नहीं, राइट? होमवर्क है तो वो भी लेसन डायरी में आ रहा है, हर चीज़ जो है वो रिटन है और आप आगे चाह रहे हैं कि ऐसे लोग आप क्रिएट करें जो कि आगे आने वाली दुनिया में फ़िट हो जाएं, लेकिन अगर आप अपनी मेथड को और टीचिंग को और एजुकेशन को इंटीग्रेट ही नहीं कर पा रहे तो किस तरीके से पॉसिबल होंगी ये चीज़?
Since your organization is working on helping entrepreneurs, what advice would you give to people who are trying to digitize education within this country?
So I have one I'd say request to anybody who's entering in the edutech sector, and that is कि don't be in a hurry to design the technology. Design, understand what the problem is first. हम context नहीं understand करते ना, हम एक टेक्नोलॉजी लेके आ जाएंगे और हम कहेंगे इसको रूरल एरिया में आप वो कर दें, स्केल कर दें, लिटिल नोइंग कि वहाँ जो है डिजिटल लिटरेसी है ही नहीं. उनको प्रॉपरली फ़ोन पे व्हाट्सएप वो रिस्पॉन्ड कर सकते हैं मगर उसका प्रॉपर यूटिलाइजेशन और उसको उस मशीन का उनको आता ही नहीं है. जब इस तरह की सूरत हाल पैदा हो जाती है तो वो टेक्नोलॉजी बेकार हो जाती है क्योंकि हम प्रॉब्लम के बारे में नहीं सोचते. Anybody who's entering into this segment, whether you're building a new school or you're coming up with an educational application, look at the context of where you are and how things are already working there, and then design your technology around that problem and not the technology first. App to ban jati hai, app to, you know, there are a dime a dozen, but what are you solving? And that's more important.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for joining us. It's been a pleasure having you on board. Hope to see you soon.
Thank you. Thank you.